Hello, and welcome everyone to today's conversation. This is TBQ Live. My name is Reena Dayal, and I'll be hosting the conversation today. And I'm joined today by a very special person, Rashida. Welcome, Rashida.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. You are equally and even more special in my life. So it's brilliant to be here.
Absolutely. Rashida and I go back a long way, and I'm sure maybe some of that will be revealed. But most importantly, I'm really delighted to welcome all of you who are joining us today live or indeed as a recording. Thank you so much for your time, for being here with us. Today, we're going to be talking about a really interesting conversation and topic around consistent outperformance. So we're going and not have high performance. And I feel Rashida is perhaps the best person to have this conversation, who has transitioned like me from the world of corporate into entrepreneurship. And we know that right now there are a lot of people who are considering that choice or indeed have made that choice in the last 1 year. So we'd really like to delve into that detail a little bit more. But before we get into that, I'd just like to share a few words around TBQ Live and what this is all about. This is a live broadcast that takes place every second and fourth Tuesday. It's a live discussion. And in a way, I have to say, me and my host, Maria, who's not joined in today, that's the beauty of being in a team, because sometimes one of us can take the lead when it's busy. And the key thing is that both are really passionate about working with leaders who can transform the world. And what we are hoping to do in this TBQ Live, which is often seen as a recording, so thank you very much for comments and feedbacks that from all of you. They're really helpful. We are really hopeful in TBQ Live to create a space to have a conversation that will raise awareness and discuss solutions. And we are always looking at hosting experts and engaging with the audience as we go along. The real inspiration of TBQ Live, a book. It's a book that I wrote about 4 years ago with about 20 other experts. And it was all about mastering the science and art of leadership in an unpredictable world. And how unpredictable are the times right now. It covers 9 levers. So in every TBQ Live, we are featuring, if not one, more one of those 9 levers that will help people master the science and art of leadership. And today we are going to be talking about 2 of those levers. And very soon you will get to know more about that. But before that, let me go back and to Rashida and have a conversation with her about transition. Now, I know, Rashida, that you, like me, have transitioned from the world of corporate into the world of entrepreneurship. And I'm really keen for us to spend a little bit of time unlocking and unwrapping for us, what was your state before you made that choice? What were the thoughts that were going through your head?
Oh my goodness. Well, a lot of confusion. I think that's probably the word that sums up things the most comprehensively. But, there was a lot going on. It was really hard to make sense of all of the different emotions and thoughts going through my head. I felt uneasy where I was. I knew that something wasn't quite right about the current situation I found myself in my previous role in the corporate world. And for me, that was in a large law firm known as Big Law, but one of the largest law firms in the world. And there are all sorts of conflicting emotions. My team, I really love. The parts of the work that I do that I really enjoy, but then also feeling limited in a sense that I wasn't really leaning into those things that really did light me up, where I did feel I could have more of an impact. Then there was also other factors to take in. The fact that I had recently had my first child, and that had changed a lot of things for me in my perspective on what was important, what I should be doing right now to set a foundation that will last beyond me and will be something for my son and future children if they come to inherit and also be proud of too. There was also a lot of thoughts around the experience of me as a Black woman in the profession, and I was very passionate about wanting to see more justice and fairness, frankly, in the profession. That was one of the reasons why I decided to become a lawyer. Those were things that were really important to me. And I think I had reached a point where I'd spent a lot of time in the corporate world doing a lot of diversity and inclusion work and not really seeing the changes that I wanted to see. And so lots of confusion around, well, am I on the right track? Is there something else I could be doing? So that's why I use the word confusion. It was a very difficult time. There were a lot of thoughts, different emotions, unpleasant, uncomfortable feelings that I was living through and not really understanding how to find a way out of it, how to find that clear path that would set me onto the right track. And so for me, one of the things that I did at that time was really try and find as much resources as possible to help me navigate through that challenge. And one of them was your book. And I didn't think I had met you or we'd been in contact or anything at that point. It was just something that, I was looking for. And the Brilliance Quotient was an amazing read because it really opened my eyes to how to navigate those really difficult decisions, the things to hone in on, what to focus on, where to start, frankly. And it just helped make things really clear for me over time.
Thank you. Thank you. Come to a little bit more from the book and how we work. But thank you so much for sharing, because I think I quite resonate with this sense of confusion. Because when I was thinking about moving and transitioning from corporate life after 22 years, you're from the law firm. I was from the corporate world of Aviva Insurance with an HR background. And the confusion for me was a lot around, you're clear about that you want to do something, but you don't know how to really start. And that becomes sometimes a big blocker, because all that you know is that you've got this drive and need to do something different
Yeah, absolutely.
in your life. But it's difficult at that position. So you feel isolated at times. So like, who do I speak with in my company? I can't. I'm thinking about quitting. Sometimes you really need to struggle and find some speak with. Who did you?
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree.
Did you get my last question? I'm wondering.
I got the end where you said it was, it was quite difficult to find someone to speak to within the organization. And I totally resonate with that, because you've got, on the one hand, people who, they're really invested in you, in your career, in the fact that you're there, and they don't want you to leave. So actually your interests perhaps are not aligned in that they will try and accommodate you and try to change things so that you stay within the organization without really wanting to perhaps engage with the side of you that's ready to leave. Then there are others who I think are also perhaps feeling a bit uncomfortable, but actually there's a bit of fear around that and really exploring that and what that means and what their life would be like if they weren't in the corporate world. And so they're also not great people to speak to, because they're not ready to address those questions. They're not really ready to dig deep into those feelings, which bring about sort of discomfort and uncertainty. And then also there's the fact that if you're speaking to people who are in the same environment, there's an element of sort of being institutionalized, I think, which I didn't really appreciate until I had stepped out of the corporate world on maternity leave. That was the first time, after about, 8 years or so, that I had an extended period of time outside of big law. And it's so funny how, how much your perspective is very much skewed by your environment. And I didn't realize that until I had stepped out. And, it wasn't, 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, probably about 6 months before I had actually, was in the space, the headspace to contemplate a world outside of, of that corporate space. So absolutely, I needed someone who was outside of the organization, but also who understood what it was like to be inside it. Because I was very conscious that, these feelings that I had were not, for me, they were not indicators that definitely I was in the wrong place and I should leave. Rather, it was that something wasn't quite right. And I really wanted to explore what that was without making any, rash or drastic decisions. Um, and so someone who understood that world perhaps would help me to understand how I could navigate within it in a way that was more aligned with me, that worked well for me. Um, and we could explore that too, as well as the option of leaving. Um, so for me, it was really important to be able to speak to someone who did have that experience, um,
Understood.
and so could sympathize, I think, a little with what I was going through.
Fantastic. And also, I think so. So sometimes when I'm working with people, just to continue to build up with it, so it's about, right, you feel that confusion, you've got that passion, you want to change, then you think you want to reach out to somebody else who can support you in that transition, and then the transition happens. I mean, some of the people I work with, or one of my clients, not when to jump and how to jump, and then you take the leap forward, and then what happens? So I'm curious to know about. Tell us, because there are a lot of people who might be listening to this recording or might be listening to us live who might be considering it and wondering, what is it like in that first few months after one has taken a decision and transitioned out from corporate into entrepreneurship? So would you like to share some insights about what did you experience? What did you feel? What were your thoughts? I know I'm taking you back in time, Rashida, but let's unpack that a little bit for us.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as I said, in my case, it wasn't an easy decision, and it wasn't something that I went in particularly lightly or quickly. It took time, but I think through having these conversations, I'd reached what I call the point of no return, where I knew that, gosh, I really wanted this now. I had a clear vision of what I was going to do. It was very difficult to stay put and not pursue that. So that was, I think, important. I needed to have reached that point of no return so that when I did make the jump, when things get hard, as they will, when you have those doubts, I knew that I wouldn't give up, because it was hard. I mean, when I think about that time, handing in the resignation and leaving, I often say to people that I felt like I went through this period of hibernation almost, where I was mourning the old me that was, that knew what she was doing, that was on a very clear path, that had lots of people supporting her, that was in a comfortable working environment, that had the approval of society in general, that had, people calling me their role models, and I guess being in a position that a lot of people really struggle or strive to get into. And I'd been that person for a long time, and that was my identity. And stepping back from that, I sort of felt like, gosh, who am I? What am I doing? Who is this person? And I think I had to, just be a bit kind with myself and sort of say, look, it's okay. I feel really I don't even know, I can't describe it. That's why I say hibernation. It was almost like some days I didn't want to pull the covers off my head. I just wanted to be in this dark space where I could regroup, where I could feel safe,
Yes.
where I could, just take the time that I needed to acknowledge the fact that a big change had happened and get used to it. So that I could then emerge out of the hibernation much stronger and ready and focused to do what I needed to do to move on to the next stage. Um, but I think it's important for people to prepare for that, prepare for that feeling. It's strong. It feels, it's not pleasant, but actually I saw it very much as part of the journey, part of my growth. I needed to go through that. I needed to shed some of the old stuff that I perhaps had hung on to that wasn't actually who I was in essence, their labels or their badges or their other people's opinions, which ultimately are not going to be the thing that help you and get you to where you need to be in life. So it was tough for sure. But I think the fact that I had reached, as I said, that point of no return where staying was more uncomfortable than leaving, and then the fact that I was able to take a bit of a break and just be kind to myself and say, do you know what, it's okay. I'm going through this transition. I understand it. It makes sense. Of course I would be. It's a big change. Um, yeah, I would say that that was my experience, and that actually um, I can see why it was an important part of it, but it is difficult, and people do need to prepare for that, I think.
Fabulous. I really love that. I'm going to ask you a question very soon on the Black Founders Hub and
Okay.
what is it that you from the founders there. But I was just, when you were sharing, I was remembering one of the things that I would definitely suggest to people who are thinking about transition is to manage your finances. Because one of my fears that were there and became a little bit more real a few months after I left corporate life was the fact that you don't get a salary check. It's really uncanny because you're like, right, I dependent on, I didn't have to think about money in that sense. And then you're suddenly battling for it. And what helped me out was that I had put together some savings. So I really could, for 6 months to a year, focus on, giving myself that space, as Rashida was talking about, to really understand this new me, to be able to understand what I really want to do, because you have thoughts about what you want to do, but sometimes they change when you suddenly
Yes.
move into that entrepreneur space. So there's a different thought process that goes through. And I was also working with someone just as Rashida was working. Actually, that's how we met, right, Rashida? We worked together during your transition, which
Yes.
was such a delight to see where you are right now. So I do tell people, make sure that you've got some finances, because be quite a comfort blanket when you're going through this transition, and for you to
Mm.
experiment and try out new things, because that's what entrepreneurship does. It gives people the freedom to be who they corporate life allow you to be, that, just the full of who you are. So that's what entrepreneurship allows. Now, one of the wonderful things Rashida does, apart from having founded a company called Strand Sahara, which is, and she is, of course, an award winning lawyer, she's also the co founder of Black Founders Hub. And in fact, this month we are celebrating Black History Month. Shout out for all the people who are living their lives as examples, role models to other people, and fighting for equality, justice, and respect. Something that made you turn around and become an entrepreneur, Rashida. But I'm curious, tell us a little bit about Black Founders Hub first, and then also give us an insight about what is it that you're hearing from first few months of being a startup. What are the challenges that they are facing?
Okay, gosh. I just love what you said about equality, justice, respect. Yes, that's me to a T. But yes, Black Founders Hub is, it was, again, it was born out of a desire to solve a problem that I was facing. So I had started Strand Sahara, which is a legal service for Africa-focused businesses. And it was a very lonely journey. I thought that being in the legal profession was quite lonely in terms of the lack of diversity there, but it's actually much worse in the tech world. And I was now in legal tech, and I was desperate to find a community of people who I felt understood the struggles I was going through, who would support me on my journey, who I could turn to for advice, who'd already achieved the things I was looking to achieve. And so in that sort of exploration, I was speaking to a lot of different people about their journeys, and whether this sort of idea would also resonate with them. And one of the people that I was very fortunate to meet was Denise Nurse, who has built her own legal company from scratch over a period of I think it was 13 years in the end, and then sold it. Um, and then ran it after that as part of a bigger organization very successfully. And I just thought, wow, she's done it. She's done exactly what I want to do. It would be wonderful to be able to speak to someone like that and have them as a mentor in my life. And when we did speak, she was very open to the idea of having a wider group where we could bring more of us together. And so at that point in time, we were thinking that we would have just a network of Black women founders in law, specifically. And we reached out. We found quite a few people who were interested in that, including some people who are stars now. Dr. Shola Mos-Shobamimu, who is on TV all the time now, talking about justice, equality, respect, and a lot of other amazing women But we then realised that actually this is a space that would be great for not just women, but men as well, and not just people in the legal profession, but actually all professional services, because we face a similar journey, whether it's finance, insurance, all of the other professional services who sort of offer similar services and could benefit from working together. And at that point, we brought David McQueen in, who is a brilliant, amazing leadership coach. And we founded Black Founders Hub. So this was in the midst of the pandemic, 2020, that we started talking about it. And then we welcomed our very first cohort in January 2021. So it's still quite new, but really pleased to say that we've welcomed a second cohort now. It started in July this year, and we'll be bringing on more because the demand is huge. And what we're finding is that, we're connecting with people who, like me, were looking for that space where they could speak to other founders about the particular challenges that you have as a CEO of a business, trying to, bring something into being, but also that's in alignment with your own values and the change that you want to see in the world. And that's really what brings us together. So we're Black Founders Hub. A lot of what we do is about empowering and creating more opportunities for Black communities where we live here, but also elsewhere. We've got members from Ghana, Jamaica, other countries in Europe as well. And so it's wonderful actually to have that network. And it's another, I guess, important step forward. And so your second question was about the challenges that founders face. Now, the interesting thing about Black Founders Hub is that, we've got founders from different backgrounds. So some who have come from the corporate world, but an awful lot who haven't actually, and who went straight into entrepreneurship, or who sort of had career changes, so complete changes from, a completely different industry into something completely new. So we're getting a lot of different perspectives. But the challenges, as you identified, often finance is one of them, but it's also about just knowing what to do, frankly. There's no roadmap. It's not like you're climbing a career ladder where you can see that, well, first you start here and then you move here after a few years and then here, and you just need to hit these competencies in order to be promoted. No, there's no roadmap. And so actually it's about figuring out how to succeed in business, which is really hard. And so if you don't have that network, if you don't have those mentors, it's really challenging. Oh, I think we've lost Rena, but hopefully she'll be coming back shortly. So yes, my experience with Black Founders Hub is that it has been really an amazing space for us as founders to be able to explore those difficult questions with each other, to learn from each other, to have as role models people who have achieved the things that we are seeking to achieve, and understanding from them how to get there, but also in a space where we can truly be who we are. We can talk about the issues that are not mainstream in the corporate world, around the fact that when you look at the world today, there's so much global inequality, with quite often Black communities right at the bottom of the pile, and all of the historical reasons for that, the colonial mindset that still exists in many places in the world, and how to overcome that. And so it's really wonderful to have that space. And she's back. Hi, Rena. So I was just finishing off talking about Black Founders Hub and how it's been so monumental and amazing for me personally, but also for all of our founders.
Thank you so much, Rashida. I know the joys of technology, talking about legal platforms and all of that. My technology gave up on me. I just went off into the ether, and I was like, right, I'm missing out such an exciting one. But I'm sure I'll pick it up in some of the recordings as well. But thank you so much for sharing about the Black Founders Hub, which I certainly did hear, and what an inspirational story. And in fact, another powerful for entrepreneurs to really think about, because it can be quite lonely. I mean, one of the things that I as well missed when I transitioned into the entrepreneur world is there was no team. You take that for granted when you're working in a corporate setup. And then when you move to the other side, you're like, whoa, where's my team? I mean, where's the people that I have coffee with every day and, have lunch or go for a walk? And the meetings that I have, where is all of that gone? So it's really powerful to be becoming part of a community, and how wonderful to create something like the Black Founders Club hub as well, to be able to support a certain segment of the population that we do know face additional challenges. And I say that because of my own experience, as well as working with people from different BAME backgrounds, of how difficult it can be, and the double whammy that we face. So well done on Black Founders Hub, and good luck on that one. But also
Thank
thank you
you.
for sharing the challenges on becoming a founder. I mean, some of the ones that I often hear about founders is how, while people love the freedom of being an entrepreneur, how much
Mm.
they have to unlearn and pick up new skills and challenges, and how much they really have to understand who they are. Because when you're on your own, you really have no one else to rely on but yourself, and which is not the case necessarily when you're an organization, because there's a comfort blanket of being in an ecosystem that already exists, but you have to create your own ecosystem. So sometimes when you're going through that transition, there are certain things that we have noticed that really helps people accelerate. And there were a couple of things that actually Rashida and I worked on during her transition. And I know that I'm passionate about it, and I work with a lot of people on it. But I'd love us to talk a little bit about these two special game changing levers, as I call it, which really help people consistently outperform during transition. Because as you've heard in the first bit of our conversation, it's not easy, it's a challenge. There are a lot of things that are taking place that can become blockers, that can stem your flow, and there are a lot of new things that you need to do. And the two areas that we worked on, and if I recollect, Rashida, and remind me in case I'm misunderstanding or not remembering in the right way, when you were going through transition, you took a combination. Of course, you and I worked together on your transition plan through the coaching and training that
Yes.
we did, but you also took part in a business accelerator program. And you,
Yes.
so you use that combination about, what do I do need to work on myself so that
Mm.
I can be successful, and what can I do on the work, on the business that I need to set up, where you work with the business accelerator. In the conversation today, I'd like to focus a bit about what you did about working with yourself. And I remember two of the many topics that we covered, but two topics that really gravitated and gave you a lot of oomph and made you really, what I would say, zip forward, our strengths and values. It
Mm.
was really about
Absolutely.
you being able to play to your natural strengths. And that's a massive, massive game changer for those who might be considering transition as well. So I'm going to be talking about these two topics, but let me just ask Rashida first, why did you get drawn towards the topic of strengths and values?
I think it was because I understood that there was a certain elements of the work that I was doing that I really enjoyed, and a lot of elements that I didn't. And I really wanted to, where possible, be able to do something that would allow me to do more of the stuff that I really loved. But I was a bit confused as to, it wasn't clear to me really as to uh, what those things specifically were. I was coming obviously from the perspective of providing a legal service, and I was a disputes lawyer, so it's very much focused on advocacy, drafting, speaking to clients, presenting, lots of different things. And there are elements of each that I enjoyed, but what was it? What was the thing that made the difference? And then also it was just knowing this feeling of unease, but having a sense that it was because I was doing something that really I didn't want to do, or that didn't align with my understanding of what is right in the world, and how we should be behaving, or how I should be behaving, but not really having clarity on what those things were. And so I knew that I needed to understand myself a bit more, and wanted help to achieve that. And so reading your book opened my eyes to the importance of really pinning down and understanding what your values are. And that exercise was amazing. Actually, it was really wonderful to go through it, really eye opening. And then equally, the strengths of the work as well was so revealing and actually uncomfortable in many ways, because I remember when we first did it. the very first strength that I had, I felt so conflicted about because it really sort of went against my sort of learned thinking as to what the type of person I should be.
Do you
Um,
remember what that was, Rashida?
oh, I do, yeah, because it was very painful. Number one was significance, and it just felt icky, like, gosh, no, I really don't want to be that person who is so concerned about what other people think and that sort of thing. But in talking through it with you and understanding actually what it really means and how I can use that strength to, further the really important goals and, the vision that I have for, uh, what I'm trying to achieve, for achieving the justice and fairness and really communicating that in a way that people understand. It's really actually valuable to have that strength. So yeah, it was really eye-opening and challenging, but also a huge leap forward in terms of understanding, okay, this is it, this is what I need to do, this is how to do it, this is how to avoid getting into those situations where I'm really uncomfortable, because they do not align with my strengths. And actually it's okay to acknowledge that and do the things that really do align to your strengths and get help in those areas where we are perhaps not as as naturally gifted. So strengths and values for me are really important foundations for just getting started, and then being able to use that to put together the building blocks of the business. But not just the business.
Absolutely.
I mean, it was just wonderful how I now have a roadmap. I now have a really clear compass for determining whether something is the right thing to do for me or the wrong thing. It just provided that level of clarity that applies not just to business, but every area of life, frankly. It helped me reassess relationships, all sorts of things, in a way that has just been really, really helpful. So I can't stress enough how much those two levers are really game changing.
I agree with you, and I love those two levers as well. I actually had that I wanted just a couple of them, but to be honest, with the technology that has been acting up today, I'm not going to go down that route. And in fact, Rachida has been
Okay.
sharing quite nicely what these two are. But if I was to just play it on why I'm fascinated with these topics and pretty much Rashida is talking about, and also to be able to pull out a few bits that she mentioned to really bring it to life. Strengths is, of course, what we say, our natural talents. All of us are born with certain natural talents, and in our early formative years, there are certain things that we are naturally inclined to do. However, what happens is two things when we are growing up. One is we are often told and taught how to fix the problem. So if you think about when we came back from school, or if you have children, when your children come back from school, I'm not saying everybody does that, but most likely it happens. And if I have a report card, let's presume, and I come back from school, or your child comes back from school, and there are four A's and there's one D or a failed subject, the attention of the teachers, and it's all out of love and consideration, goes towards the D. It goes about how can you become better at it. So at a neurological pathway level, we are taught how to fix the problem. So that's one element that gets ingrained and sharpened over a period of time. The second is when we start working, we have role managers, we've got teachers, we've got trainers, and we see other people who are very successful. So we try to mimic them. We think if we can do it their way, we will be successful. And because of these two life experiences, we forget what our natural talents are. We forget to focus on them. And what the Strengths Finder does, and what we loved working with Rashida, was to flip the coin and put the focus back on what is your natural style. So, can you create your own unique formula of success? And that becomes vitally important for an entrepreneur because you're on your own. So you cannot be working in any other way apart from your own way. And Rashida has just shared how beautifully she embraced that, even that strength of significance, which makes you uncomfortable at times, but really be able to adapt and become much more stronger and that helps you accelerate. And in fact, the Gallup Strengths Finders right now taken, when Rashida and I did it, there were about 19 million people who had taken the Gallup Strengths Finder. And this was probably in, what's this, Rashida? Which year are we talking about when you transitioned into your
So
entrepreneurship?
the move was 2018, but I think this work we did in 2017.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
2017, your book got released. That's how you would have connected on the book. So 2017, there were 19 million who had taken the Strengths Find Out. Well, today there are about 26 million who have taken it. So clearly, it's a very powerful tool, and I invite you to take it. It's Gallup Strengths Finder. Go and look for it. And also, another interesting thing that happens, and I'm going to invite Rashida again and put her on the spot and ask this question. Because what happens is when you're using your strength, your brain wakes up. They're happy because they are your natural skills, their natural talents. So your brain gets happy when you're using more of it. But sometimes more can be too much, and sometimes less is more. So if you're not careful and don't have mastery, so one is having awareness on your strengths, embracing them, but also to be able to sharpen and use it in a way that it lands in the right way for other people as well as yourself. Because if you don't, a strength can become a weakness as well. So I wonder, Rashida, whether there were any of your strengths that you had to watch out for that could have or did become or you have to watch out for even today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm so grateful that to have been able to work with you and have you explain to me the with the edges I think you talked about, and the the different ways in which the strengths actually, if they're overused, can actually be detrimental. And so, for example, one of my strengths was futuristic. And as soon as I saw that, I thought, yes, gosh, that makes sense. I'm always thinking about the future. I've always got ideas for how we can do things better. I'm always, I'm into the futuristic movies when we're choosing what to watch at the end of the day on Netflix. Um, but the issue there, the other side of the coin, was that if I focus too much on that, and not on the here and now and how to actually execute some of these ideas and choose which vision or, which idea to adopt and then take the time to do that, then you're in this, really unproductive state of just being a dreamer, essentially, and not actually getting things done. So I think I'm also fortunate in that Activator was also in my top 5. And so it was really thinking about how to combine the two to make sure that I'm getting the best out of both. Because equally, Activator,
Fabulous.
right, wanting to get things done all the time, needing to tick things off, it's not something you can control. It's just, it's within you, this need, this desire to do that. But it become detrimental if it means that, because of this desire to get things done, you're just jumping headfirst into things without thinking about the long-term plan. You're ticking things off a list that, make you feel good because you've completed them, but actually they aren't the important tasks that you need to complete in order to move forward towards that, that one goal that really does matter. So really understanding how they all interact and how to get the best out of them, and also be aware when you're leaning into one or two a bit too much has been really, 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 valuable. But I'm also reminded now, speaking to you and hearing you explain them, that I think I need a refresh. I think I perhaps need a few more sessions with you, Rena, because it's been so long, and I know that I'm falling into traps at the moment. So yeah, maybe we'll
Bless.
talk about that later.
Bless indeed. That would be absolutely a joy. But you're so right, and I love this bit that you talked about the combinations and how sometimes they can accentuate the problem. I know I have, for example, like you, a futuristic and an ideation. And when they get combined together, man, I have to be really cautious about it. So really being able to use your other strengths to be able to really, really unlock the potential. And the beauty of this is, for a moment, I think so, Rashida, and I'm not suggesting that you don't need to look at your weaknesses. But the problem is that we always do tend to look at weaknesses. This is really flipping the coin. And as they say, then this is science, this is just not us saying it. You hit your highest potential when you're working in your strengths. If you work in your weakness, you will make progress, but it'll be incremental. And we're talking about game changing. We're talking about consistent outperformance, which is why this is a really, really solid strategy. So maybe, Rashida, it's not just you. Maybe there are people in the Black Founders Hub who might want to take the Strengths Finder, and we could do something, I think, to really be able to power them up. We've
Very
got another
true.
few minutes, yeah, and we've got another few minutes, and I just want to spend a little bit of time on values, which is the other, for me, values are the soul of an individual. They are the belief system that creates a strong inner foundation. And in a world that's so dramatically changing and it's so unpredictable, that's where we can anchor ourselves, our values. So again, Rashida, do you remember your values, and in what way has that helped you really be able to carve out your niche as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember you challenging me to come up with, the five values, right? Or even fewer if I could. And I remember when I started seeing this list of these wonderful virtuous words and thinking, oh no, but all of them are important to me. I want this and this and this and this and this. But then that wonderful exercise of really thinking, well, actually, when push comes to shove, what are you choosing? What are the things that really determine your decisions that you can't live without, that mean everything? And it was really wonderful actually to go through that experience. And I found it really empowering to walk away with those five values. I know them off the top of my head.
Tell us
I've
what your
made
values
them.
are.
I've made them easy to remember as well by giving them, or trying to find the letter F to combine them all. So for me, it's fun, free, fierce, family, fair. That's it. And by fun, it's that I need to have fun in what I'm doing. I know that as a person. I've been in situations where, you know, I'm doing work that I enjoy, but it's in a really terrible environment. I'm not with people where, I can have fun with what I'm doing. I hate it. I will do anything to avoid it. I'm always the one in the room, whether, it's 2 a.m. when we're busy working, who is finding a track that we can all dance to for a moment, or finding something that will make us all laugh and keep us going. Like, that's so important to me. Freedom, the autonomy of being able to make my own decisions, my own choices, so important to me. To the extent that I feel irked if I feel that something's being imposed on me and that I don't have a choice. And it's not necessarily a positive thing actually thinking like that all the time, but I know that it's true for me. So actually having that level of autonomy in whatever it is I'm doing is really important. Fierce. Now, this is influenced by Beyonce actually, and her alter ego Sasha Fierce, because fierce for me has a meaning which connotes sort of excellence and really being the best at what you do. Again, that's very important to me. At the extremes, it leads into perfectionism, which is not good. But actually, it's something that I can't deny is always there. I'm always wanting to make things better, put my best foot forward. It makes me unhappy to not do things in that way. And I think that perhaps links to one of my strengths, which is maximizer. Um, Family. I suspect that this might be high on a lot of people's lists, but no, it's really high for me. If my family, any sort of personal connections like that are not happy, I can't be happy. Like, it will always be there. It's something that it's just a fact for me. And so making sure that I'm investing that time with family is really important. And the last one was fair. And this, I think, leads into my choice to become a lawyer. It was very much about wanting to, correct injustices, to do what is fair in every situation. It's really important to me. It has guided many of my decisions. I just can't do certain things if I think that actually this is not right. This is not fair. It's something that again, it's just there. If I had to make a choice between, sacrificing something or doing something that I perceive to be unfair in the moment, without a doubt, I will sacrifice that thing. So I knew that was important to me. And then having those really helped me to see why I was unhappy in the position that I was in, because I wasn't able to really live some of the values that were really important to me. And then it helps me again to make decisions moving forward about what to do, because I know that If it's going to violate any one of these things, I'm not, it's just not going to work for me. So
You
that
know,
was a wonderful exercise.
thank you. And that last bit that you mentioned is reminding me. So the person who created the Walt Disney Company, Roy Disney, he makes a statement about it's not hard to make decisions once you know what your values are. And that's exactly the point that you made. And
Yeah.
values become such a fulcrum, I mean, such a great narrative, Rashida, because it just showcases how value can be your rudder to really be able to direct you and give you foundational support and yet allow you to flex because you know your limitations and you know how much you can control the life around you because you know what your values are. And what becomes quite interesting, and you mentioned this thing about family being important to you, is to be able to also understand that perhaps what you value might not be what others value. So it becomes a great tool as a leader to be able to understand not just your values, but the values of other people, because then you can really be able to engage with them and help them become who they are. And it's the true in both of it, strengths and values. To play to other people's strengths and values, what a game changer it can be for an entrepreneur who needs to connect with other people. I feel I could continue to have this conversation with Rashida, but I'm very conscious TBQ Live is 45 minutes. It respects the time of everybody who's a professional. I really would like to thank Rashida for being you. I've enjoyed reconnecting back with you and this conversation. You're right, we'll stay connected offline on other topics. But for the moment, very much for being here with us, everyone. And thank you, Rashida, for being here. Of course, TBQ Live is going to be back on October 26th, which is the fourth Tuesday. And we're going to be having a little bit of conversation of neuroscience for business. And we're talking about a healthy mind platter and more, and how that might help you become a far more effective and successful entrepreneur and leader. For the moment, this is Rashida and Rina signing off for TBQ Live. Thank you very much and wish you a fantastic day. Bye for now. Bye, Rashida.
Bye bye. Thank you.